Hello, folks. Back with ancient cosmography. Here's this poem I recited or read last night at the 11th Hour Cafe here in Santa Cruz, and I showed them the geography that it seems to be referencing. It's a Celtic Gaelic poem translated to English about a massive boar and a birdman, a man has a bird's head, basically. He's named Mako Duin. And so I think, Mako Duin, or Diarmid Mako Duin, represents Papua, and the boar he's hunting represents Australia. And, because geographically, Australia and Papua are virtually inseparable. They don't touch, but they virtually touch because there's islands and reefs that go basically all the way across, so it's difficult to sail through here. But because they don't speak English here, Australians never talk about that place. They only associate with the Anglos in New Zealand way over here, which is anyway. It's just interesting how modern conceptions of things are so opposite to reality, especially geographic reality. But anyway, there's a part of the poem where, Finn McCool, who seems to represent the Isle of Skye in Scotland, he is pissed off at Diarmid he's jealous of him over women, or some woman that he wanted to marry ended up running off with Diarmid, probably because of Diarmid's enormous wang, because it seems like his legs are actually New Britain here, and his feet are New Ireland and the Solomon Islands here, and this is his wang, at least in the Lascaux avatar of Papua, or what seems to be an avatar of Papua in the Lascaux caves, with Australia shown as a bison and Papua shown as a birdman with a huge wang. So, they say every woman falls in love with Diarmid when they see his lovely form. So that's why Finn McCool hates him. So Finn McCool sends him to hunt this boar, because everybody who ever hunted this massive boar, the boar is named Gulban, and this region is called Ben Gulban, basically the hill of Gulban. And regions being described as mountains, that's pretty standard in ancient lore. For the Egyptians, every land, every region, any place basically was just symbolized by three mountains, three peaks. And the underworld was often referred to as the hill. So mountains and hills don't necessarily have to be literal. They just were a very common symbol for just some terrestrial region, or even sometimes celestial regions, I think. But anyway, so he sends Finn McCool sends Diarmid on this suicide mission to hunt this boar. But Diarmid's such a good hunter, he actually slays the boar. First he throws his spear, which is the Wessel Islands right there, and it bounces off and breaks into three in the story. That's why these are three islands. But then there's islands right next to those that are shaped like a sword and a scabbard. And so it says that he then kills it with the sword. Um, and he, so he slays the beast, and then he's escapes without a scratch, without a wound. So Finn McCool's like so pissed because he was hoping Diarmid would die. So so it says Mako Dune did there the monster kill, while he himself escaped without a wound. Then on Finn of the Fane did sadness fall, and on the mountain side he sat him down. It grieved his soul that generous Mako Dune should have escaped unwounded by the boar. For long he sat and never spake a word. And thus he spake, although it be sad to tell, measure Diarmid the boar. So then he tells him to measure the boar, which is what the ancient sailors did when they were constructing these traditions. They would try to measure these islands and whatnot. And so he points out how, he tricks him into measuring the top of the snout, which is where the stiff bristles kill him, which is all these reefs. This is biggest concentration of reefs on Earth, probably. So anyway, but the thing where he sits down, like he says, then on Finn of the Fane did sadness fall, and on the mountainside he sat him down. For long he sat and never spake a word. So I think that actually relates to this island right here. That's my guess. Because, and then there's also a not in this poem, but a separate story about how when Mako Dune is dying from basically being tricked into measuring the boar along the top of the snout and getting pierced by a poison warrior reef right here. He's dying, and then other giants are telling Finn he has to save him with his life-giving water in his hands. So he twice, brings the water over to him, but he then just lets it go through his fingers just to troll the guy because he's so petty and hateful. Most of the gods, or a lot of the gods, are pretty fucked up. They get pissed off really easily. So yeah, I think that this is that island, right? So this, I think, represents him sitting down. It kind of looks like he's taking a shit there. But yeah, so this would be his butt. This would be his leg, his foot. That kind of looks like a foot there. Has a heel, toe. And then this would be his nose. This would be his mouth, his chin, his forehead. So it's not it's not as obvious as some things, but the fact that this, I think, represents somehow his fist and his thumb, because he's always sucking on his thumb. That's his most famous thing. His main avatar, I think, or his main geographic, manifestation is as the Isle of Skye, where this is his fist, this is his thumb, but this is also his thumb here. So it's like a cartoon or a comic where it kind of moves or things move around, and that just like in the Australian Aboriginal dreaming tracks like this that they use to navigate, they'll find the similar shapes in different places and they'll form a story out of it. So he's famously sucks his thumb and like, and so yeah, I think even though other than the fact that these both kind of look like they're sucking on their thumbs, there's not that much commonality between them. But I think that may be enough because that is kind of the most distinctive thing about Finn, basically that he's always in multiple stories he'll suck his thumb and then gain wisdom or different things like that. So I think that this is him sitting on the hill of Ben Gulban. And then because this is right next to these things which seem to represent his cupped hands with water. So, water drunk from Fion's hands had the power of healing, but when Fion gathered, you could say Finn or Fion or whatever, either way, gathered water, he twice let it run through his fingers before he could bring it to Diarmid. Threatened by his son Oisin and grandson Oscar, he fetched water a third time, but this time he was too late. Diarmid had died. So I think the first one is, the first two are these two, which are, just kind of small, somewhat roundish islands, and, like this one could especially kind of look like two hands cupped together. This one maybe is one hand or two hands clasped tightly. It could be even possible this one is somehow relates like that was the other hand cupping it, but it's more, I think, the fact that there's all these little islands around them that signify the water dripping out. And then I think this one right here is the third one where he's actually gonna do it, but by the time he gets there, the guy's dead. And it seems to have the double meaning of that when he's dead, this island represents Finn's hand or hands cupping water in them. But when he's alive, I think that these islands signify his nose or his beak. So it's kind of double entendre. They're like, and then he's dead because his death is actually intrinsically related to this avatar, or at least his dead form. So yeah, certainly that fits for like sitting, like that he's sitting on the hill, that this is part of the hill. And this island here also looks similar to these other kind of hand islands. So this might even be another iteration of his hand, and it kind of could look like it has fingers here. Not entirely sure about that. And so yeah, here he is. Diarmid's open mouth, he's like dying or whatever, and then Finn's like, here, I'll save you, psych, and he just lets all this water drip out of his hands, not into his mouth, just somewhere else, I guess, just down into the water. And then same with this one, it has all these little drops of water like falling out of it. And then this third one, which here you can't even hardly see that it's a separate island from the mainland, but it does have a small channel running through here. And that would be the third one that isn't letting the water drip out, but it's too late to save poor Diarmin. Because these giants always have to die, because that's what explains the fact that the islands are not like jumping around all the time, doing things. I just sent an email to the Cape York Institute or Partnership or something in Australia, which is connected to the Aborigines and connected to at least one Aboriginal leader who has seen and pointed out the connection between their Dreaming Track song lines and other ancient mythology and songs like those of Homer. So I want to get in touch and talk to them, because they'll know a lot more about this than I do. And it's interesting in this story, I think I might have said in a previous video, but that I did find an Aboriginal songline, Dreaming Track, navigational song that is very similar to this, in that one of the gods trolls some of the other ones the same way, where they want food and she says, sure, I'll give you food, and then she puts it right in front of their face and is about to give it to them, and then she's like, psych, and then she eats it right in front of them. So it's it's the same funny things. It's meant to be humorous. A lot of the ancient religions, a lot of the earliest hymns and whatever, they're meant to be funny. And Aboriginal people in Australia, they know that they laugh often. I've seen the videos and read about transmission of these stories, and it's full of laughter. So yeah, Cape York, so that's where that organization is located, on this peninsula. And so this was an ancient Egyptian avatar that seems to represent Australia, that his face is Cape York, and his horns are the Great Barrier Reef, and his leg, I think, is Cobourg Peninsula here. Zoomed in. And let's see. Although that one's like a reconstruction. That was what I first saw and used, but then later I found the original, which of course is way better. The reconstructions always mess everything up, but if you look at the original, you can see the shape really matches the shape of Cape York. It even has this kind of bump right there, this bit here. I don't know if that's cairns or what that is exactly, what area, but and so the Aboriginal people who do understand the system of navigational songs, they will be perhaps better situated than me to really decipher them. Let's see. So yeah, and then I think this arm might be York Peninsula over here. It's funny, the two biggest peninsulas are both called York. Of course, this one's way bigger than this one, but they're the two kind of long, weird peninsulas. Yeah, basically. And yeah, that's the Great Barrier Reef. That's the horns. Even gets a little of the shape, I think. And this is the Lascaux, what seems to be the Lascaux avatar of Papua. And so, yeah, his wang seems to be this Papuan peninsula, and his legs are the New Britain. Modern place names: Bird's Head, Bird's Beak, Bird's Neck. These are like the modern names for this. And